This video on BJJ Over 50 is on some tips and variations on the cross choke from closed guard. So I'm going to assume you already know how to do the basic cross choke, so I won't be covering that in detail. If you don't know about that or how to do that, I would see my other video where I talk about how to actually do the cross choke. So some tips on the cross choke. So there are three main tips that I recommend. The first one is when I'm going for the cross choke. So I'm rolling with someone, I get my hands in. I want to make sure that before I attack and try to finish the cross choke, that my hands are close together. So a common mistake the beginners make is they get one hand in, the other hand in, and there's lots of space. And so when they try to do the cross choke, it's not tight enough and it doesn't work for them. So make sure you tighten up your choke. When I'm rolling with someone, from experience, I've already made that mistake many times at the lower belt. I try to do it too early. So I know as someone experienced to make sure that before I go, that my hands are deep enough. If my hands aren't deep enough, what I can do is I can shoot my hands. So I relax my hands and shoot them forward to get them deeper. So I'll show you how to do that. So I'm closed guard here. I have one hand in, other hand in. And so maybe he's like leaning back, and so he loosens the choke up. All right, so from here, to get it deeper, I'm just gonna relax my hands and shoot my hands deeper, okay? So now my fingers are touching, and now I'm deep, and now I can finish, right? So my hands are in, okay? All I do is, I'm like this, holding lapels, all I do is relax my fingers and shoot them forward here, like this. Shoot them deeper, and then I go ahead and do the cross choke. All right. So that's the first tip is before you do your choke, make sure your hands are deep enough. The other tip is to make sure that you use your blades. So if I'm choking on your forearm, there's like this bony part on the sides, and there's a flat part on the top and bottom. I always want to make sure I roll those blades because it cuts into the neck. So whenever I'm choking, any choke I do, I always make sure that I roll the blades in when I do the choke. So I see a common mistake for beginners is to get the hands in, and they don't pay attention to that, and then they just kind of pull wherever. So make sure that those blades are in. The hands this way, then I use this side, right? So make sure the blades are in when I do the cross choke. The third tip is make sure you don't burn your hands out when you do your choke. So you could be rolling with someone, you got the choke, the guy's defending, you almost got it, so you start using more strength. It's okay to use a little bit of strength when you first start, but you don't want to use lots and lots of strength. Sometimes, you can go ahead and give it all your strength and you can make it work and you finish the guy, but then your hands are all burned, and so the rest of the round or your next guy you have, your hands are kind of too tired, your arms are tired, and you can't do much. So as an older grappler, you want to make sure you conserve that strength. The key is to only use, as an older grappler, only use your strength you have when you need it. Okay. In fact, you shouldn't use that much strength at all. You should just use a lot more technique than strength. So that is my third tip. All right. So next thing, something I like to do is when I'm doing the cross choke, I like using my left hand in. So when you first start learning the cross choke, you usually are taught with your right hand in, and then you put your next hand in this way or this way. And I really like using my left hand in. I first heard about this from a BJ Penn book years ago, where he talks about, I have my opponent in closed guard. All right. And say he has his defenses, where he has one hand on top. Okay, so this is the most common defense taught in jiu-jitsu, is his front hand, which is usually the right hand, is grabbing my lapels and down on my chest. This hand is defending my hips. So if I use my left hand, I can go ahead and break his right hand grip by over gripping here and bringing my hands down. And it breaks his grip, and then I can do my attack. All right, so that is one good reason on why you should use your left hand. The other thing is I found that I get a lot more finishes with my left hand in. I'm not sure why, whether people aren't used to being attacked that way, or maybe because I'm not as strong with my left hand, so I'm forced to use a lot more technique. And so I use it from closed guard. I even catch a lot of people like we're on our knees. He's on his knees here. or grappling, and I come in here with my left hand. So I may start here by his collarbone, and then before I attack, I go higher, and then I go for my choke, and then I pull guard from here. All right, so this is a common thing I do, is I play here, and then I attack and finish from that. All right, so that's something I do. In fact, I would say 90% of my cross choke finishes, I'll have my left hand in first before I go for the choke. Okay, all right, so those are some tips on the cross choke. Now I'm gonna show a couple of variations that I really like, that work really well for me, and I learned them in Judo. The first one here is kind of a loop around choke here. So I'm here, right hand is gonna be up here, grabbing by his lapel, and this left hand, my thumb's in here. Okay, so I'm like this. And then when I go choke, I'm gonna whip his head down, wrap around, and I choke. All right? And so when I do this, I don't want my hands too close together. If they're too close together, it's hard for me to get my hand around his head. So I gotta loop my arm around, it's hard for me to get that around. So I can have a little bit of space, maybe like an inch or two between my hands here. Also, I don't want it too far apart, because when I do that and I loop it around, there's too much space and I can't finish the choke. So the easiest way to do it when you first start is on your knees. And so a lot of times when I'm rolling with someone, they're on their knees, I just go in, so I'll grab the lapel here. So you can start by using your left hand as one way and grab a little bit lower by his collarbone, and then this hand grabs on top here. All right, and then what I do is when I go to finish, I whip his head down in between my arms, and now I have a cross choke, and I can finish him here. All right, so whip him down and roll it here. You can also do it in close guard. It's a little bit harder in close guard here. So I usually do it from close guard. So I'm here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull his head down. It's like usually this way, pull his head down, and then wrap around, my feet are crossed, come back center, and finish like normal. All right, so that's how you do it from close guard. That's a good choke. The next choke I like to do is a choke that I learned or saw a famous judoka named Kashiwazaki, and this is a really good choke. This is how I do it. So I have my left hand in here. Okay, I have it in close guard, and then from here, what I'm gonna do is I need to get his head down. So sometimes he may laying on me. Head down here. Sometimes the guy's laying on you. If he's doing that, it's easy. All I gotta do is go around. So I'm gonna reach around his head. So my arms on this side of his head. I'm gonna grab his belt. Okay. Here. And then I'm gonna roll down the choke. Okay. So when I do that choke, like usual, my hand is not in his lapel. I need to make sure I turn my blade into his neck when I start choking, and then I push down my armpit, push down the back of his head to help push down into the choke here. So again, I'm here in close guard. So I'll pull him down. Okay, come off to the side. So this hand goes over. I grab his belt. Okay, and I choke. All right. You can also do it from here, on your knees here. And so from here, all I do is I go ahead and pull guard. Okay, I grab his belt, I fall down, and I choke. So those are two really good variations on the cross choke. And those are some tips and variations on the cross choke from guard.